soldiers, potions, and our great Lord and Savior. Welcome to the Mondstadter of today. Now here's how you can fuck it all up. In the up and coming, my autocorrect genuinely defaults to coming. God damn it. Archon Domini. So all of Mondstadter's shiny new content revolves around 3 main axes, which can be further subdivided into like 3 paths each, which further subdivides into like 2 or so. Look, there's a reason this whole project is half a year deep on the base, and Victoria Free's code being Eldritch Knowledge is only half of it. Starting in approximate, possible chronological order of completion, we have... To not repeat myself too much, and because I want fun engagement, go to this section of the previous AdDevDiary if you need a reminder on what hillagers are. What I will remind you of here is this series of quests focus on translating the Hillsters language. And despite some hiccups from the child labor division, we are very close to critical mass at the start of the game. Therefore, a handful of events near game start and boom, all is well. This doesn't really offer much gameplay wise, as it's guaranteed to go through. Unless... No, it's nothing. Unless... But it is a very big deal for the hillagers tags, as it removes the fuck you in particular modifier, also known as isolated language. It also launches a global event to all human nations, with responses catered to their specific rank on this season of competitive racism. One thing it does offer to Mondstadter proper is access to the peaceful path of Dragonspine, rich, massive, and the only landmark actively trying to kill you. But where there's a will, there's a way, and where there's money to be made, there's a trillion brave enough to kill the innocent to get it. So to colonize Dragonspine, you have 3 different paths: Salvagnir, and capitalism. These 3 are not exclusive. They are in fact the opposite, as each specific base, infrastructure, or political event offers either specific circumstances or modifiers. Some of you meta slaves might fear such a setup, but rest assured I will post a full spreadsheet of all events and their specifics in the Dev Discord server, linked in the International Space Station. For the rest of y'all, you can simply choose a path to follow all the way, as their benefits are quite clear from the get-go. The Salvagnir path requires the earlier Operation Transylvania, with its endpoint being either continuing to own Dragonspine, releasing Salvindagnir as a protectorate, or letting them unite with the United Tribes. Currently, this is planned to be entirely dependent on what choices you make throughout the event chain, with specific "this will affect who owns Dragonspine" at the end of this event chain, like tags on each choices, and alongside that a couple of specific events for the United Tribes themselves. I do wish to tie this somehow to like the political power of specific interest groups, but I don't know how to do that yet, so we will see. The capitalist path involves other parties, mostly Leeway and the Adventurers Guild, wanting to get involved with your nonsense. You will have to personally pay more or less, depending on how ethical you want your business to be, and or how much population you want to have available once you fully own the state. The Snezhnaya path is actually a little quirky on account of the fact that it will happen whether you want to or not, where you can refuse the help of investors, or continue your racism streak all the same. The Snezhnayans aren't known for patience. When you refuse them for the first time, you get a 5-minute grace period before they come back again and start fucking with you. If you do play into their hand, every event is similar-ish to the capitalist path, where you either choose to pay less yourself at the cost of a hillagers genocide, pay out of pocket to keep things civil, or push the Snezhnayans to both pay less and protect the locals, but at the cost of testing Snezhnaya's patience. By the end, you can either give in and just let them take Dragonspine, in return for a banger treaty, max relations with the most powerful nation on the map, that is also a pariah of the highest order, but we don't talk about that, and a handful of great modifiers. And all it took was a bit of America gameplay, violating your own sovereignty and spitting in the face of the other nations and your very own subjects. Alternatively, if you have kept the game of chicken to a minimum, you can simply seize everything they've built at gunpoint and kick them out, instantly starting a war with the single biggest military power in the entire world. Yeah, the choices that get you here are intentionally made to look like absolute garbage, so that no player not in the know would choose them unless they're literally looking for trouble. Hope you've planned ahead, because if you want to survive the wrong end of Normandy, you will need to give it everything you have. If you do, in fact, survive this hell, you'll receive an absolute fuckload of prestige and a boost to relations with all nations, especially the Hillchurls. This is the deal with the devil path. The fuck around and find out. And we all know the only thing to do when faced with such a dilemma is to meet it with a shotgun in one hand and a root beer in the other. Honestly, calling these paths isn't really the right term. Just like my sexuality, I can't keep jack shit straight. All of these can run somewhat in parallel, unless to let other events play out however you want, to whatever ending you want. If I may pet my own fur here, I'm quite proud of the concept I've got going on here, and I can't wait for my first playthrough. Realistically, like 4th, 5th, after like a shitload of hot fixes that I am definitely posting on this channel. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is barely 2/4 of the content. That's the early game, you sons of bitches. Sit your ass back down, we ain't done. Well, early game isn't exactly the right term, more like the first thing to shove you into a locker and steal your lunch money. These 3 beautiful journal entries are available from Mondstadter as well. It's just that there's something else to take your attention beforehand. But once you are somewhat comfortable with the number of sentients you have killed, you can choose one of 3 ideologies: money, incest, and the good one. You see, Mondstadt has 2 things going for it. It's one of, likely, the most liberal nation in the world. The key word here is most. This is still a semi-theocratic junta with a massive landowner class that has already attempted to overthrow the government once. The other thing Mondstadt has is an absolute beast of a military. Now, some of you may look at that with some skepticism, but allow this perfectly fair and impartial source to present his case. First, the logistical capabilities to send 80%... Was it 80? I swear I heard that somewhere. 80% of all units your nation can mobilize to send them to fuck knows where, over water most likely, is fucking massive. I know for us Victorians this doesn't mean much, but in a realistic scenario, and especially with this kind of tech, this alone is enough to put them in the top 3 at least. Similarly, their equipment is far above what the other nation can field, with the exception of the gunsuckers. So serving as, kind of, the only example of progressive governance, and having the military power to facilitate discussion, you can pursue each ideology in their own way, either pushing your own agenda, most potently abroad, or expanding your logistical capabilities, such that you become a more enticing business partner. Unlike the last events, these 3 paths are exclusive. The first to complete, that's what you're stuck with. So be careful what war goals you choose if you end up fighting Snezhnaya. From there on out, each one has a major event. For the noble path, the Banquet of the Bastions allows you to form a power block for 100% free, and offers specific events tied to each of the 7 nations to try and pull them in. Do you feel like this world just needs a Holy Roman Empire? Well, this, ladies and gentlemen, is the path for you, as once you have a nation in your block, you can start cousin marrying all the way to a personal union, assuming you can get them to accept a law commitment for monarchy. Once they are a personal union, further noble branded nonsense will break them down for your enjoyment, though this process will make it harder to pull other states in, and is definitely a late game ambition. The progressive path starts the only way it could: infighting, where you choose to either go diplomatic or the other way. Either way, new buffed progressive political movements will spawn throughout the world. Think of it like a buffed version of the Spectre Haunting the World events. Choosing Diplomatic will offer you more influence, meant for lobbying or a power block if you so wish, and boost the population attraction of the movements, while the Militant path will give your military some solid bonuses and increase the activism of the new movements. This path is meant more for the treaty empire rather than the traditional conquest. You know, the fantasy of trying to hold 6 kids on a leash and keeping them on the right side of the road. To make this possible, we'll have to make the AI a bit more lenient in treaties and after rebellions. Lastly, the mercenary path is the one true goal of all of Victoria 3. Cold, hard cash. I describe it as the anti-empire in the event texts themselves, and therefore your goal is not to conquer, but to extract as many Benjamins out of any other nations through whatever war they get involved in. This path's major event may seem contradictory to that, as it involves you not quite peacefully putting the EA under new management. But ideological ambiguity is just as much a part of this path. Your ideology is whatever makes you the most money on any given day. Did you take them as your protectorate simply to have more experienced bodies to throw at the wall? To put the mercenary clans back into power and have them at your service? To simply let them live in peace with a better guarantor? That is up to you and your actions, my friends. In fact, all of the ideological specificities of these paths are up to you. My one rule when creating this entire mess was not to build rail, but one of those fuck-ass 18-lane highways America keeps killing itself for. And I hope that when it releases, you will all love it just as much as I do. I realize that focusing all the content externally in the very first update, an update almost entirely focused on said nation, and the only 3 others for which this content doesn't apply, sure is a design choice, but I feel that this way the world will feel less empty when you play as the other tags. You know, if you can physically feel the content that the other nations are getting. And hey, this away, Mondstadter will only get more and more fun to play after each expansion. I hope that when it releases, you will all love it just as much as I do. I also hope that my next script won't end up being this fucking long.